Hey guys, I just wanted to do my review of The Flash, Season 3, Episode 7, Killer Frost. So, the episode starts off from where the Episode 6 left off, the cliffhanger in which Savitar frees all of his alkalites. They're holding Joe against his will. He's able to fight them off, but he has Barry as mercy. Alchemy grabs the Philosopher's Stone and escapes, and Savitar drags Barry around Central City, not unlike Zoom. Exactly a year ago, the only difference is that Zoom is like much faster than Barry, the Reverse Flash, or Zoom, to the point where it's like they're traveling. That both characters are traveling through wormholes to the point where it almost comes across as instant teleportation from a bird's eye view, at least from Team Flash, who is tracking Barry through the Cortex back at Star Labs, almost like instant teleportation. And HR makes the suggestion that in order to save Barry, that Cisco uses his powers to open a breach to Barry's latest location. And at Iris and even though Caitlin's reluctant to do so, Iris insists that Caitlin uses her Killer Frost powers to save Barry. They both arrive. Both characters arrive at the scene when Savitar is about to kill Barry, and Caitlin uses her powers to freeze. And nobody can see Savitar except for Barry and apparently Alchemy. He's invisible to everybody. He's invisible to everybody else, but Caitlin uses her powers to basically freeze Savitar in place, so you basically get like an outline of his body, and so he's forced to retreat. So, and in between, and even they do a quick cutscene, they go back to Star Labs. They have brought Wally, who's been cocooned from the last episode, back to Star Labs, and they monitor his brain activity, but he's essentially in this comatose state, and almost kind of this like metamorphosis, like butterfly stasis or something like that, how Caitlin describes it. And Joe's so pissed about the situation that he goes to the police station where one of the alkalites, he has a broken nose and is in an interrogation room, and Joe pulled to Jack Bauer, in which he like grabs him by his nose and just starts like squeezing his broken nose and wants more information about Savitar and Alchemy. And Caitlin shows up, lying, saying that, Wally's out of the cocoon, Joe should go check up on him, but it turns out that she's just there. And basically, the writers describe her as kind of like as Killer Frost. I mean, not as Caitlin Frost, in which she's using the Killer Frost power. She has like that bit of angst in her, but she has like Caitlin. She's only like an amalgam of the Killer Frost, who's not fully evil. She's not as campy evil as the Earth 2 version, but she has more nuance. She has more of this angst and kind of this like self-loathing about her whole situation and fear about what she's turning into. But she's committing more and more villainous acts. To one, she goes into the interrogation room and freezes the camera, and then tries to learn more about Alchemy and Savitar from the Alkalite, but then the cops hear what's going on, and she uses almost like freeze breath. It's almost similar to Supergirl's freeze breath that create this mist inside the interrogation room, and so when the cops come in, they don't know what's going on. She's able to sneak out. She freezes the doorknob shut, but then Julian catches her leaving, and then she is forced to take him hostage at this frozen food factory, and forces him to create an algorithm that, in order to search for, if not Dr. Alchemy, then Savitar. HR has basically been doing like research, looking up files on old Flash villains on Earth 1. He says that he makes a suggestion that Team Flash should track Caitlin the same way they tracked Captain Cold through ultra. I guess it was like ultra cold. It was like ultra cold temperatures or something like that. Like ultra low thermal temp. not to, like ultra cold temperatures, for lack of better terms. Barry goes to the frozen food factory to track her down. Cisco hacks into the surveillance footage, and because like Caitlin has a moment where she comes back to her senses and wonders what she's doing, and gives Julian the opportunity to send a message to a detective who's played by Greg Grunberg, who I'm sorry for butchering his name. He was from Heroes, NBC's Heroes. He's now playing a detective. They show up. They're on their way to their location. The Flash shows up and knocks out Julian and tries to reason with Caitlin. And Caitlin chews out Barry for how his actions of resetting the timeline after Flashpoint kind of ruined their lives. And she discloses how Barry told her that Dante, Cisco's brother, was still alive in the pre-Flashpoint timeline, which I was surprised that they treated this as new information, because I thought it was already implied in episode 302 that Cisco knew that his brother's death was a result of Barry's actions indirectly. But I guess he just figured it's like, oh, he was just reluctant to go. He was reluctant to save. He was willing to save his own family, but not save the life of a family member, Cisco's brother. He didn't realize that. I guess Cisco just never realized that his brother was alive and well, and that they patched he was alive and well in pre-Flashpoint timeline. So the cops show up. They try to shoot Caitlin. Barry speeds them off to like a hidden part of the frozen food place, but Caitlin creates an icicle and stabs Barry in a certain spot of his leg, where she says that even though it will take 4 hours, even with his healing factor, it will take 4 hours to heal. Don't follow me. So she runs off and tracks down another acolyte of Savitar, who reveals that Savitar's seen the future. He sees that Caitlin fully becomes Killer Frost, and that it's going to be, and she's apparently part of Savitar's rise to power. And Cisco shows up at the scene because he's pissed about the revelation about his brother. It says he's not gonna. And he even told Barry, he's like, if I find her, I'm not gonna call you. So he shows up with his gauntlets and his glasses and tries to use his powers they kind of have this like almost. Caitlin kind of has Cisco on the rope. It's not like that Vision where they're both in like full costume and fighting one another, but Barry does find the location and speeds off there, but Caitlin freezes the ground to the point where it's like the Flash slips on the black ice and is on the ground. Barry knocks her to the ground, and then Caitlin tries to use a kiss of death tries to kiss Barry in order to basically just freeze him to death, but then thanks to Cisco's intervention, she knocks Caitlin out and tells Barry to start vibrating and warm up. They take her back to the pipeline, and Barry just feels bad about his actions affecting both Cisco and Caitlin, and Iris tries to be a shoulder to lean on by saying that she doesn't know, he can't blame himself. He doesn't know that maybe her powers would have manifested in the pre-Flashpoint timeline, and maybe Dante still would have died in the car accident in the pre-Flashpoint. So try to tell him that your action, it doesn't make you, what you did didn't make you an awful person, it only makes you human, which I can kind of get the argument for, what she's trying to, like, her point of view about saying how, Caitlin's fate wasn't affected by Barry's actions, but it really didn't hold much weight because we've seen the fact that, they mentioned in 302 that when Eobard Thawne dropped Barry back off of the porch, and when the timeline was reset, it basically the events of 302 took place maybe like a day or two after the end of season 2. So, and they mentioned that Dante had been dead for the last 3 months in the new timeline. So basically, that's still on Barry, and the thing is that Joey gets so freaked out by basically by Caitlyn's state that he rashly decides to cut Barry out of cut Wally out of the cocoon, and you can see his body's just still vibrating, and he like runs off, but his biochemistry is out of whack, and he's still in a state where it's like his new powers could actually kill him, and he's still in like his body's still in a state of flux. So Barry has to convince Caitlyn to help them, and she says, "Why should I?" And he says that and Barry just tries to use reverse psychology by saying, "I'm just gonna let you out, but in order to let go free, you're gonna have to kill me." And ultimately, she proves Barry right when saying is that if you're really that much of a villain, if you're really that much of a killer, you won't have no problem killing your friends without second thought. And it brings Caitlyn back to her senses, and she creates an antidote in which Barry runs off to an old Francine West's old house and is able to inject Wally with an antidote that basically just fixes his biochemistry, and he's in the speed lab, and it turns out that he's faster than when Barry first started out, and he's so eager about wanting to become a speedster, and Caitlyn has to wear the dampening cups from the last episode full time just to make sure that her alter ego doesn't start taking over again. But Barry has to go talk to Julian about not turning Caitlyn in, and Julian basically blackmails Barry into quitting the CCPD in order to keep quiet about Caitlyn. And then, of course, Julian's contacted telepathically by Savitar, asking him to become his acolyte, Dr. Alchemy. As much as, and you can say, and my thoughts about this is that you can say what you want about Kevin Smith. I know he's kind of divisive, but it's like he knows how to direct like a really great Flash episode, and this is definitely one of the strongest episode of season 3 thus far. And I feel like I'm just tired of this fucking speedsters just being the main villains for every season. It's tiresome and cliched. I feel like it would be more impressive if they went with other villains who could basically hold their own against Barry without having to rely on having to be a speedster. Kind of the whole idea, think fast to be fast. I mean, it's like it's DC Comics. We have, Batman being able to hold his own against, it's fantasy. Like, he's able to hold his own against villains that that are like metahumans or have superpowers, and so it's like, why can't villains do the same? Otherwise, every villain in his rogue gallery, and Barry's rogue gallery, would just be speedsters. So that's why I feel like, say like Dr. Alchemy and Caitlyn should be major villains, and it just seems like they seem to be going through the whole like Jekyll and Hyde motif, for lack of better terms, this season, with Magenta have a split personality, Caitlyn having a split personality, and apparently Alchemy is a split personality of, I guess, Julian Albert, because Albert Desmond was a incarnation of Dr. Alchemy, and they had a whole split personality dynamic in the comics too, which just seems to be what they're going for. But it just feels like they made it very obvious when they said in the last episode, when they were going to lead the sting operation to go bust Dr. Alchemy, that Julian just happened to be absent, and I didn't think they would. I just thought that would be a red herring. That's too obvious for that to be a clue that Julian and Alchemy are one and the same, and then it turns out it was, and I just feel like that's frankly lazy writing to me. As in addition to it being lazy writing to, having a speedster as a villain for the third villain, as for like the main villain, and just the fact that it's like I'm still kind of wanting to see Iris have a more agency. It's like just like a sentence that's like a scene of her like leaving Picture News or being getting a phone call at Picture News saying, "Oh, we need your help. We need to be like the ear to the streets for Team Flash," and it just feels like all she does is just be Barry's cheerleader, unless she's on Earth 2 or in the Flashpoint timeline. And it feels like Candice Madden is a good enough actress that she should be given more to do, and I think it's kind of bullshit that she's not. Unless for, like, special episodes. But, in spite of the flaws, I did like a lot of the drama and the conflict it caused with Caitlin becoming the villain of the week, because we've seen her history with the whole team from the get-go. Like, she's gone through so much trauma, like a dad that passed away, a mom who was emotionally distant as a result of that, her fiance dying twice, being probably, I think she's been kidnapped more often. She's been the member of Team Flash has been kidnapped more often than anybody else, especially by Zoom, which that was a multi-episode arc, and and Zoom was the rebound guy, which she didn't realize, and she was traumatized by it, and you kind of realize how much, you would think she coped with it, but apparently she kind of like bottled up her emotions about all the crap she's been through, and basically how she used her intellect to, immobilize Barry and throughout the episode, and take advantage of the fact for the most part that Barry's reluctant to hurt her. I feel like that she would make a great villain. I know there's people who just think like, oh, that wouldn't happen because it wouldn't keep her on the show, or they just want her to stay sweet and gentle. But in my opinion, expecting Caitlin not to become a villain somewhere in the immediate future, somewhere down the road, is like watching Arrow and not expecting Slade Wilson to become Deathstroke, or watching Smallville and not expecting Lex Luthor to become a villain, or watching the Star Wars prequels, say what you will about them, and not expecting Anakin Skywalker to become Darth Vader. I mean, or like at least watching the Clone Wars, where at least that character was more endearing. Whereas like, as much as you get invested in these characters, it's like if they're going to become villains, it's more or less an inevitability. And again, I think it's clear that based on the hints dropped in this episode, that Killer Frost is gonna be a major player throughout this season, especially since Danielle Panabaker has said that she's pushed to do more Killer Frost stuff, but she's happy that she's not just saddled with another like love story like the last two seasons. So overall, love this episode in spite of its flaws and the lazy writing and the not surprising reveal, but Greg Berlanti did say in Entertainment Weekly article talking about the 4-part crossover next week that I guess that even when you think the reveal is obvious, there's going to be more to the story than meets the eye, so they might try to hopefully they'll try to make the Dr. Alchemy stuff more complex like they did with the Reverse Flash. So how do you feel about do you think Caitlin's going to become a villain at the end of the season? How do you feel about Savitar becoming a main villain? Do you think he still looks too much like a Transformer knockoff? Because I sure as hell think he does. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.